Hello, everyone. Welcome to this week's live. So good to be back with you guys every week, as always. So if you have any questions, throw them in the YouTube live chat directly, or the live stream, specifically the live stream chat on Twitter, not just a regular comment. There is a specific section with live stream comments that you can, and we can pull them up. We see them here. And yeah, let's keep it farmer friendly. Let's have a good time. We're going to go through some fun stuff with you, and then we'll dive into some questions. So keep asking your questions. And yeah, let's bring up Luke.
Sweet, excited to be here today, everybody. So yeah, there's a few things I wanted to go through. Today I wanted to kind of go through like a check-in with the community to tell you guys, hey, we see some issues inside of the game. Here's what our focus is on fixing them. And then I kind of wanted to go through the long term, what we're doing at Pixels again today as well. I want to show you guys some of the stats, some of the good news, and then kind of explain to you guys what we're working on here for the next like 6 months too. So I think the one word that we're trying to focus on and hone in on at Pixels is the word fundamentals. So chapter 2 came with some really big changes in the gameplay, right? There's still some things that we're figuring out to make it feel better. We'll go into this in a bit more depth later. But there have been some things that we've seen inside of chapter 2 that have made it a lot better when it comes to what we're working on towards fundamentals. When I say fundamentals, what do I mean? In fundamental, or when I talk about fundamentals inside of Web3 gaming, what I mean is kind of building a business that looks similar to Web2 gaming. So that means focusing on, things like ecosystem revenue or, average revenue per user, lifetime value of a user, retention, like all these things that Web2 games typically optimize. I think Web3 games really need to also. The difference is when we talk about it in an ecosystem context, it really is good for everybody inside the ecosystem, right? Web3 gaming is still in a very early stage where nobody's figured out the fundamentals of Web3 gaming yet. And to us, that's the quest that we want to undertake. We basically want to figure out how we make play to earn work, how we make Web3 gaming work. And we're trying to figure out how we increase the metrics so we need that are relevant towards that. So there's some good news with chapter 2. We've actually never been closer to achieving our goals of getting towards the fundamentals than we have inside of chapter 2. I can share some stats really quickly here. Let me see if I can share my screen. But yeah, we talk about this a lot, right? We talk about this one metric or this one goal that we have, and that's when we kind of figure out fundamentals in our mind of net ecosystem spend. And what we need to do to make that happen is basically we need to be giving out less tokens than people spend inside of the game. Now, there's a couple of things that we're doing, and there's like phases to this journey of us getting there. The first phase being we have to make the game feel better, play better, and address all the concerns with community sentiment. The second phase is essentially optimizing things like revenue, so adding in more pixel token sinks. The third phase is kind of going more into a growth mode. So once we start to get some of the fundamentals figured out, once we get some of the basics in a Web3 context of basically figuring out like our CAC to LTV, like how much it costs to acquire a user, how much it costs to retain the user inside of a token context, then we can move on to the next stages. So there's some cool stuff that we're doing with all of this. But here, I'm about to pull up my screen. So chapter 2, it's not the perfect release, but there are some things that are going kind of well. So chapter 2, we're seeing 2 stats that we really care about right now. They've increased a ton since the release of chapter 1. In the last 30 days, we've seen playtime increase by 132%. And we've also seen average revenue per user, ARPU, increase by 134%. It's kind of weird me coming on an AMA and sharing with you guys these metrics, but these are the things that really matter inside of the game. So basically what we did in chapter 2 was we introduced new game mechanics that made the game harder to buy. And we also introduced a few new mechanics at the very beginning of the game that added more things for you to spend pixel on with the upgrades. There's still a lot more to do there, but what we're now starting to see is there's basically less bots inside of the game. There's more real users, and there's more ways to start spending inside of the game. So our average revenue per the users inside of the game has increased. So good on the fundamentals there, and it's like the first step there. Again, what we're trying to achieve over the next like 4 to 6 months is we want to get to a spot where we're benchmarked against Web2 games and performing better than Web2 games. So we basically want to be hitting the same level of revenue as a comparable Web2 game in the space that we're in that's not Web3 without spending any money on ads, instead using play to earn rewards. So these are the metrics that really matter as we're trying to get there. Now, there's still a bit of steps that we need to take before we start focusing on going into more of the pixel token, seeing some revenue. What we're seeing is that there's some sentiment with the chapter 2 changes that we also need to address. And these are just 4 points that we've seen. But we see that there's an issue with coins, with energy, with some of the community gameplay, and with the game economics. And these are the areas that we're going to put a short-term focus on to patch before we start to focus on some of the other sides of things. And all of these kind of tying together too. But yeah, we hear you guys. Like, we're actively coming into the Discord. We're actively coming into the community. If you don't feel listened to, that makes me feel kind of sad, because believe me, we're hearing all of your feedback when it comes to the chapter 2 release, the things that you like about it, the things that you don't like about it. And yeah, basically the next month, the team's only focus is basically optimizing the gameplay to feel a lot better. So there's going to be some optimizations in terms of the gameplay, like the economics, that are going to change some of the systems. And we'll talk about maybe some of the plans that we have for that. And then there's also going to be some of the things that are just like core balance changes that we need to make that might make the game feel better. And when we say balance changes, sometimes people get a little worried, but sometimes balance means, hey, we see that energy is too hard to get right now for most of the players, especially the players that are earlier inside of the game. We might need new ways for these players to get energy so they can play longer and get through the game quicker. So there's some things like that that we're evaluating right now. So when I look at the short-term focus of Pixels, I would say that these are the short-term areas of focus before we move on to the next stages. We're looking really actively at things like industry and tool repair to add into the mechanics. We're looking at energy regeneration. The task board needs some changes and reworks. And I think we're going to change our philosophy to the task board. So one of the big things that's happened internally in the last week is we basically had decided, hey, we're going to be doing some things differently moving forward. Some of the stuff with chapter 2 went really well, but now we're going to have a new approach to the way that we were attacking some of the problems, because some of the stuff with chapter 2, the approach was right. Some of it was not right. So we've learned from our mistakes. And now I think what we're going to do with the task board moving forward is, it ties in with the next point too, with tier 3 and tier 4 resources, is that we need to adjust the task board a bit more to what the actuals and the economics of the game look like. So if you guys can see, there's a really big issue right now with, for example, tier 3 and tier 4 industry kits, where tier 3 and tier 4 industry kits are being farmed to gain XP inside of the game, which has caused like a very low price for these tier 3 and tier 4 industry kits. That's something that we don't really like, and I don't think any player in the game likes that. They see it as like an issue, and it's one of those things that we need to fix through task board, through maybe industries degrading, and then through some of the gameplay that we designed too. So that's basically going to be like one of the main priorities at Pixels right now. We need to fix some of the game economics. We need to make it feel better, and we need to kind of like patch these holes. So task board rework, one of the biggest changes that will be coming with that is we're going to start respecting the marketplace a little bit more with the task board rework. Right now, the task board is balanced towards energy production inside of the game. But that means in some cases, like tier 3 and tier 4 resources, there's actually very cheap tier 3 and tier 4 resources on the market. We probably need to adjust some of the task board tasks to reflect that a little bit more. Because if you're going to buy something off of the marketplace, it doesn't really make sense. So that might mean a tier 3 or tier 4 task might require more in the short term, as we, kind of use the task board to buy back some of the higher tier resources at a more aggressive rate. So there's going to be some changes in the philosophy to that moving forward. The other thing that we need to really address is the tier 3 and the tier 4 gameplay as well. So one of the goals when we released chapter 2 was we actually wanted a lot of higher level players and more of the lower level players too to be playing on land right a lot more than they are. If we have more players and more of the economic activity inside of Pixels on the NFT land, then one, it becomes more cyber resistant, helps get more resources, or it helps get more pixel rewards to the right players inside of the game. And then, yeah, it also sets a better economic base too. So one of the pieces of sentiment that we're seeing too is that landowners feel rugged. And that is not the intention with chapter 2. There are some things inside of the gameplay that didn't go the way that we expected when it came to some of the balance that we initially set out to do. This is the next area that we're going to be starting to address as well. And that includes things like the business skill. So we made big changes to the winery, right? We're going to start to focus on bringing in some of the content that we had sunset originally from chapter 1 to chapter 2 back into the game. So things like the winery, things like the apiary, all of this, we're starting to realize that one, like that rare type of resource that was only available on exclusive lands, was a really fun part of the gameplay loop. Also, a lot of you bought wineries, apiaries, this kind of stuff, with like some sort of expectation behind it. And we're going to try our best to respect that. The next rework that we need to do is around reputation. So reputation, I think we might be able to get an update in for that this week. It's either going to be this week or early next. We finally have a new quest coming in. We're going to be redesigning some of the systems. So there's going to be a first pass at that when we go and release this new quest for reputation, either like late this week or early next week. You'll see what it is. It's going to be kind of fun. It'll basically just be an intro quest at the very beginning. And then we're going to start to think about a larger rethinking of reputation. So one thing that we're about to add, for example, is we're finally scraping wallet data. So we'll be able to give you reputation if you own other Ronin NFTs or if you have Ron in your wallet. So there's some stuff there. Next thing that we're thinking about is like the XP loop too. Yeah, I'm going to call this out because I think it's interesting. And this ties in with some of the pixel stinks too, is there's this interesting behavior that we're seeing inside of the game when we're seeing that people are buying coins OTC with the specific intention of leveling up their XP, right? This is creating like this weird market where I personally, we never talk about coin OTC stuff. I personally haven't had a problem with it. And we're not going to ban coin OTC or anything like that. I like that there's a coin OTC market personally because it creates like a play to earn currency on coins that we don't have to have the same expectations of managing like a whole live ERC20, right? Like coins aren't really speculated on. There's like a lot of advantages to having an off-chain currency with an OTC market for it. And it still makes it like a play to earn currency. We're not banning coin OTC. But what we are thinking right now is that some of the coin OTC stuff is one, like a little shady sometimes when you go to buy some coins over the counter. Two, when it's tied in with some of these game loops that are related to progression and towards like even earning more, that probably is something that the pixel token should be involved in, right? So when we think about like some of the economics moving forward, when we think about pixel sinks, we're probably going to start to introduce more things like XP boost, or we're probably going to start to introduce more coin purchasing directly from pixels with the pixel token. And then, yeah, one more piece that we're addressing in the short term too, and this isn't even all of it, is around crop harvesting. This is something that a lot of landowners have asked for. I think we can get something out, if not late this week, early next week, it seems like, around basically making it so that if you have an NFT land, if somebody plants a crop on your land, then we'll have a new system coming out soon where you plant a crop on an NFT land, you have an hour to maybe 2 hours to harvest it. If you don't harvest it, somebody else will be able to harvest it. One decision that we're asking ourselves, and maybe we can get some feedback on this one, is if somebody else harvests the crop that you planted, where should it go? Should that player be able to get it, or should it go to surplus? Those are the two questions we're asking right now. So if you have thoughts on that, then let us know. So
Yeah, just gonna say OTC means over the counter. That's like
yeah,
the generic word.
it's like when you buy coins from somebody else inside of the game, right? Like,
Yeah.
so games like WoW, World of Warcraft, and RuneScape, remember they banned it for a long time. They banned real world trading. We're a Web3 game. It'd be really funny if we banned real world trading over something, right? Like that'd be so anti Web3, right? So the reason why coins isn't on chain right now is because we learned lessons from Barry. When you start to see the currency come on chain, you might get some extra speculation on top of that currency that's not so healthy for the currency. So we saw that with Barry, right? We were minding our own business. We had Barry on Polygon. Nobody really speculated on it. Like most people treated Barry like they do coins inside of the game when we were on Polygon. When we moved to Ronin and all you degens saw Barry for the first time, you treated it a lot like SLP. And you guys all bought in with expectations and all of that. That creates some unhealthy economic expectations around the currency, or even if there's short-term speculation on the currency, which is not such a like bad thing, like it's going to go to its real value eventually, right? So like we don't want to have to deal with you guys basically being like, why are coins going up and down in price, right? Like you guys should know that coins is an in-game currency. It's supposed to be a soft currency. It's inflationary. But yeah, that's why we haven't made it on chain. Once we actually figure out some of the economics around coins, if you can see there's like still a ton of tweaking that we need to do, then we might bring it back on chain. But that is going to take a little bit of time. Like the game needs to be pretty mature to do that. Yeah, so somebody asked, what about buying coins in Pixel? Just increase the coins, it's too low. Yeah, so this is like one of the things that we're about to do basically. So again, I have no problem with real world trading of coins. Maybe I shouldn't say that. I will turn a blind eye to that basically. Um, like we don't endorse it. We don't um, we don't allow it, but you probably won't see bans from it in the short term. Our team doesn't have capacity to do it. It should be banned. It's illegal, but our team doesn't have capacity to ban OTC trading with coins. But yeah, what we're going to start to do is we're going to start to introduce buying coins in Pixel and some other things like that too. There's some considerations that we have to do with it so that we don't lead to too much coin inflation. But also, like introducing new mechanics like this will probably also help solve some of the bot problem. It's interesting because bots don't really farm pixel anymore. They farm coins. So that's a good step in the right direction, right? But that's like the next thing that we'll start to address, like basically attacking some of the economic incentives of bots by providing a better, safer, and better for the ecosystem alternative to coins inside of the game. But we might do it in some different ways too. Like really what buying coins might look like is buying more energy with Pixel. It might look like buying more XP with Pixel too. And there's some fun ways that we can do it. It might be in terms of like an in-game event. It might be loot boxes. Like this is the kind of stuff we're putting the pieces together on now. We're probably gonna start to move on this in the next like 2 weeks, basically. So we're gonna have some short-term economic fixes. And like that's basically the team's main focus. And then we can finally start to focus on the next stuff. So we talked about all the short-term issues. There's still some more stuff that we have to talk to and address there. But I want to set the expectations again that we're working on this so that we can start to focus on the next stages. Like we are actually at a really good spot in Pixels when it comes to talent, when it comes to users, when it comes to monetization, or at least the base of that. And with like a couple of months of work, I really think we're going to put a strong dent into actually building out solid fundamentals of Web3 gaming. And that's our one goal here. So I can kind of explain to you guys what the next steps for us are after that. So again, step one, phase one, is we need to make the game feel good and play good to our current user base so that the game experience feels right. Step two, we need to focus on better onboarding experiences so that when new users start to come into the game, we'll start to achieve more growth. Right now, there is a big issue inside of Pixels where you need to watch YouTube videos in order to play the game. And that is not okay. When we want to start to expand the growth and we want to start to expand into new audiences, then we're going to need to basically make sure that the Web 2 onboarding experience is as good as a Web 2 game, or like the general onboarding experience is as good as a Web 2 game. And when I say as good as a Web 2 game, there's a lot there. That means some of the hyper optimization that I've always put off is finally time to start bringing in. Like we need to make it so that it's so stupidly obvious, whatever screen you need to go to, you go to. We need to make it really like big flashing arrows, like all this other stuff. Like we're gonna start to bring in some of that stuff. And then with that too, we're gonna start to introduce more of the monetization aspects that we wanted to inside of the game. So the other thing when it comes to phase two, like I like to call phase two, like the monetization and like fundamental stage, is we're also working on some really cool stuff soon when it comes to prediction and when it comes to new user acquisition. So Pixels, write this down. This is a big note. This is like our biggest note. This is the best part about Pixels and why we're so well positioned. Pixels is in an extremely unique spot inside of gaming, not just Web3 gaming, where we have a unique data set that nobody else has right now. Over the last 6 months, Pixels has been giving out variable rewards to a user base of millions of users and basically tracking that data of when users get a reward and what they do with it and what their future behavior looks like. So we know when we give a reward to a user who does these actions, do they withdraw tokens and sell them? Do they spend them inside of the game? Do they hold them? Are they a bot? Because we've also been labeling bot and not bot for the last year. We have a crazy amount of data here, and now we can start to pull insights from that. So a lot of the core technology that we're building around the Pixels is around this data set too. What we basically want to figure out is objectively who are the best people to give rewards to that lead to ecosystem growth. And we're going to start to shift some of our reward structures there too. And now what I will say is that there are different people inside of the ecosystem that fit different purposes inside of the ecosystem. This doesn't mean that if you like to earn and you withdraw tokens that you're never going to earn again. But what this does mean is we're probably going to adjust the pools of who earns what, right? Because there's a good use for players who like playing the game and have that earn mindset. We can't be giving all of the tokens and all of the rewards to those users, right? Like we also need to attract a user base who basically kind of funds those users in a way, right? That's how the free to play gaming model works. Basically, in free to play gaming, you have about like 3 to 5% of your users basically funding the entire operation, right? They're the people who are, you know, they don't have as much time. They like to like flex off in digital economies. They like to use the money that they spent, grinding in real life to like not have to grind inside of a game and just like get to the fun parts quicker, basically. And I personally have the belief that a Web3 gaming ecosystem can work in the same way if you are very smart about how you give rewards and how you target these people. So that's kind of the next stage of what we're working on too. You can already see the beginning steps of it. We've made some changes into the game where it's not as easy to earn inside of pixels as it was in chapter 1. That is the reality. Now you actually have to get further through the game. You have to level up and you have to progress through the game. We're kind of starting to filter 1 for better users to give out the pixel token 2. And we're going to get even more extreme with that in the long run too. So again, like in the long run, what we want inside of pixels is we want people who are playing the game who actually like the game. And we're trying to align that a bit better too. If you treat pixels like a job and you hate playing the game, but you're just doing it for the earnings, like that'll probably be able to last for a little bit longer, right? But in the long run, we're going to shift that and we're going to kind of shift the audience that we're building for too, right? So like if you still like the game and you like earning, that's the trifecta. Like that's the kind of user that we want, right? Like we want somebody who likes earnings, who also likes the game. And we're going to start targeting for that a little bit better. We have some data that helps us kind of figure that out. But basically the next stage of like monetization is both of these sides of things, increasing more ways to use a pixel token inside of the game, pixel token utility. I personally hate the word utility. Like utility is coming from 2021 peak bull market vibes when people promised utility, but they weren't actually building product or games. There's a difference between Pixels and the 2021 products that were coming out. Pixels has a user base. It has a very retentive user base. We've been doing a lot of work on like real user identification. We have a product that people like and engage with. We are monetizing. We're making about like 2,000 or like 1,500 VIP sales a day. I think that's averaging out right now to like 45K in revenue just from VIP sales a day lately, almost like 60K in revenue. And yeah, there's a lot of stuff there, right? So utility is like obviously something that we're working on, but we wanted to make sure that the game felt good to the core user base before we started adding on some stuff. If we started basically trying to monetize Pixel when the game economics didn't feel very good to the users, and there's still some work to do there before we do that, then I don't think you guys would like that, right? So there's some work that we're doing there. So phase 2, when we start to work on the fundamentals, we start to monetize better. We start to basically close that gap of minted tokens per month with the tokens that we give out. Then we're going to move on to phase 3, and we're already putting in some of the like stepping stones for phase 3. So phase 3 is basically going mass market and finally increasing like the UA that we spend on new markets too. So in order to do that, we first need to make sure that we're at like what I like to call a positive CAC to LTV in terms of tokens. We need to basically have this fundamental side of things figured out. And then that's when we'll also start to scale to other games too. So when I think about like long-term roadmap of Pixels and this company here, most game companies don't actually hit on their first game. If Pixels is a hit, I think is still like a TBD. I think there's an argument to say that Pixels has already been a hit based on like traction in the space. And I think we've done a pretty good job here already. And there's still a lot of room that we can take this game to. Like there's so many more fun things that we can start to add. But we'll also start to shift focus onto a second game in probably like 6 to 12 months too. And that's when I think we'll actually be able to take all the core learnings from here and like build out something really, really amazing there too. So we'll have a great set of data. We'll have a team that has experience building a Web3 game. And we'll start to shift some focus there too. And then, yeah, in the short term too, we're going a bit more aggressive on some of the acquisition side of things too. I think you'll probably see some cool news from us in like maybe a month or so on what that looks like. There's a couple of people that we're talking to when it comes to the acquisition side of things. that kind of ties into like phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3. What we've been looking for when it comes to acquisitions is we're looking to add on new experiences inside of like the pixel ecosystem that can kind of fill in the gaps that we don't have. So like some of the stuff we've been looking around is like dungeon gameplay, right? Like we promised or showed you guys like what dungeon gameplay could look like inside of our gaming ecosystem. Um, Reality is it might be a faster shortcut to acquire a team already building some stuff like that. Or like even some mini game stuff too. Like I haven't even talked to them yet, but I saw PGA, Pixels Guild Assistant, made a Bejeweled game with Pixels IP. Like that's amazing stuff. There might be some acquisitions that we do on the casual game side too, to kind of start some of the experiments that we want to do with the user acquisition on the mobile side. So all that to say, again, there's 3 phases of focus. Right now we're in phase 1. We're trying to make the gameplay feel better. We're really listening to all of you guys. In the short-term focus, we need to focus on some of the game economics to make sure that the stuff that we were trying to achieve with Chapter 2, specifically around land gameplay and like some of the tiering, the economics make sense. Phase 2 is basically focused on pixel utility, monetization, and the fundamentals. And then phase 3 is basically expanding to other games ecosystems, using all the stuff that we learned in phase 2 with the fundamentals to scale out to an even bigger ecosystem. And when we think about ecosystem, like it's all oriented around pixel. Our goal as a company here at Pixels is we're trying to help make Web3 gaming better. Or I think I even clarified it more the other day. Like what's interesting about Web3 gaming is really we are on the front lines, all of us, like the community too. We are on the front lines of actually fulfilling the promises that Web3 promised. So Web3 promised to create a new internet that like basically where value creation is properly attributed amongst the internet, right? Like Web3, the promise that we all got from A16Z 3 years ago in 2021 was supposed to be that Web3 was supposed to give you value returned to you for the data that you provide in the ecosystem, for the contributions that you make to an ecosystem, for the user acquisition that you do for an ecosystem. And we still really aren't there inside of Web3 right now. But gaming is what's going to basically move that next step forward. To me, gaming is the first Web3 application that actually touches the full stack of that Web3 promise, right? Nobody else has really had to figure out the core problems that Web3 games have to figure out until now. Web3 games are the ones that have to figure out cyber prevention. Like there's maybe some protocols that are doing this like layer 0 for like a short amount of time, but Web3 gaming has to figure it out real time at scale. Web3 gaming has to figure out value distribution in ways that other people and other products don't. Like Polymarket doesn't really have to figure out like complete ecosystem value distribution in efficient manners, right? Like they have a more clear product, or like Pumped Out Fun. Like they don't do the same problems there. User acquisition, like Web3 gaming has to figure it out in like a whole new way that other products don't. I think maybe Pumped Up Fun is like the only one where it's like, okay, it creates like interesting stuff for early people. Friend Tech like does some interesting stuff there, but like Web3 gaming has to combine all these things into one and build out basically the future of all of this. So it's a hard spot to be in. And us, like front runners like Pixels, we get to be at the very forefront of developing all this new technology and bringing it to the mainstream. It's cool because one thing that we didn't really realize until recently is like, people in the industry, listen to these AMAs and they listen to like a lot of the content that we put out. And it's interesting because there is this truth to it. We are at the forefront of some of the hardest problems inside of Web3. We're trying our best to solve some of them. And like, if you want to build a successful Web3 game, you have to do it. So that knowledge share between games is always super important. That's why we're also pretty open to sharing what we are working on. Because one, if other people get their crap together, it makes us look better too. If Web3 games are still producing like things that just aren't going to work, or scams, or like if we can help lower the execution risk for other Web3 games, it makes us also perform better too. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff that we're doing here. We can start to answer some questions. I think we'll probably get some good stuff when we go into it. But yeah, just want to show you guys, we hear you. We're basically working on like a lot of the game issues over the next like 2 to 4 weeks. Once we get those in, we can start to focus on some of the monetization and some of the growth.
Awesome. Okay, yeah, got a bunch of questions here. And yeah, we can just dive into some. And yeah, I hear you guys. I'm like moving a lot. Okay, I'm at a different table right now and it's so rocky. So I apologize. Just bear with me. I'm trying to keep still, but it's very hard. I also keep kicking the cords. So, anyways, I'm a mess is what we're moving with today. All right. Let's see. Diving into some questions here. Okay. Where do you want to start here? There's some like quick ones I can get out of the way if we want. So will Moki have specific avatars and pixels or just one? All traits will have artwork associated to them, which means they will be unique, which is very exciting. And then there was another little, oh yeah, when Genkai hair fix. I actually just pinged the team yesterday about this and it's being worked on. So I'm hoping next week we'll have the change in, but we'll see. Couple of people asked again about like new quests, the new reputation quest. So Luke did mention this, but probably next week. And I know that's a couple weeks out from what we initially wanted, but we were all hands on deck on the task board last week. So we did have to prioritize and push out some things, but this is coming really soon with the reputation quests that will be implemented. So yeah, stay tuned on that. Let's see here. More clothes and decorations too. Yeah, so we're definitely going to do this. The whole reason we implemented these new avatars and made them bigger and whatnot is so that we could implement this kind of like customization features of these avatars. So yeah, you see the Ronin t-shirt, there's like the pink overalls that my NPC wears sometimes Sophia's does too. There's so many opportunities there, so there's going to be so many more customizations, decorations and clothes coming down the line.
The game is good, but how can we enjoy it if we get no coins and no energy source other than sauna and sleeps? Yeah, so again, that's why we in the beginning of the presentation talked about there are some short-term focuses at Pixels, and I can bring that up again too. That's one of them. Like I would say it's probably the main thing that we hear from you guys. That energy is too hard to get. I'm not able to play as much as I want. And yeah, we need to address this basically. So there's some things that we're trying to figure out right now on how we address that. And I can actually go through like some of the different options that we have too. So when we think about some of the game balance, here are some of the levers that we can pull. We can basically tweak the energy that we give users per day. We can tweak the coin reward that you get in the task board. I think coin reward and task board doesn't necessarily feel really right. We need to make task board adjustments to reflect the market prices of items a bit more. Like right now, there's like a really big disparity between like what an item actually costs in the marketplace versus what we value it in the task board. Partly due because some of you guys had stocked up items, partly due because the task board was balanced in a different way or philosophy than maybe what should actually work. So like the task board was balanced around energy, right? But really it doesn't always reflect the actuals inside of the game. So I think what we might start to do is we might start to balance the task board in a way that reflects market prices a bit more. The other thing that we can start to do is basically increase the buybacks of tier 3 and tier 4 resources through the task board. We could also maybe start to do tasks that ask for industries inside of the task board too. Like for example, there's a really large surplus of tier 3 and tier 4 mine kits inside of the marketplace. Yeah, there's something that needs to be changed there. Also, we probably need to adjust XP given from some of the tier 3 and the tier 4 resources, or not resources, but kits. Like for it's kind of weird that the kit is what's giving the most XP to level up in right now. That's why a lot of people are making a ton of them. The kit's supposed to be like a thing that you work towards getting. So we might change something there too. It might make sense for us to change cooldown times on the crops, right? Like maybe increasing cooldown time. So like it takes a little bit longer to farm a crop, but maybe we give some more reward for it. One of the things we want to start to do again is adding rarities. So one of the really good mechanics, if you guys remember, if you've been playing for a long time, is when we started to introduce things like wineries and apiaries. That actually made the gameplay a lot more interesting because you had to go to the specific lands in order to get specific resources. And right now there's no rarity and no distinction between lands when it comes to this kind of stuff. So one of the short-term focuses on the team is there were 2 content updates that we were working on around business, which would reintegrate wineries, and then animal care, which would reintegrate coops and apiaries. I think I need to reprioritize those to be done sooner. We have to kind of figure out what we do with that. But then the next stage after that too would be, are we still here?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, the next stage after that would be
Yeah,
around,
you're frozen. Your video is frozen, but I hear
yeah,
you, so you can
yeah, no,
keep.
it's like, I think it's because I did a thumbs up and it broke my camera.
Yeah. Okay, hold on, hold on, hold on, hold on. Let's see if we can fix it. Nope, now you're black. Great, I ruined it. Turn your camera on and off, maybe. These like Apple features that are cool are just not working with us.
Yeah, it's hilarious.
Hmm.
Okay, I think it's coming back.
Okay. There we go. No thumbs
Okay,
up
sorry about
allowed.
that. Yeah, so there's, yeah, rarity that we probably need that back. So the first step would be getting the apiary and the coop and the windmill and the winery back into the game loops. Those not being there are kind of weird. And then adding in more rare stuff, I think, is an interesting thing to do after. So one of the things that we've seen with industries, Daryl42.ron, he started suggesting doing like more limited industry drops, and I would agree with that. That's what we do with apiary and winery, and it went really well actually. There's like something fun about making some of the industries rare. It adds some interesting elements to the gameplay, especially when it comes to guild gameplay too. So one of the things that hasn't been going the way that we wanted to is the guild gameplay, and this is partly because of the tier 3 and the tier 4 rarities. If it made more sense to get tier 3 and tier 4 resources, then likely the guild gameplay would matter more and the land gameplay would matter more too. We need to fix this ASAP for the game to feel right. And we'll work on that. The other thing that we can start to do too is adjusting crafting recipes. Some of the crafting recipes are pretty cheap right now. And it might make sense to change some of that. The other thing too is the XP loop also. So basically, I think we want to start adding in either like loot box mechanics or like live op event mechanics soon, where you can get things like XP boost or XP lamps, or like limited time XP gains. When we think about where the value is being created inside of the ecosystem, there's some interesting things that we can start to monetize. So cosmetics are always, something that people point out as like a very obvious way to monetize. If we're actually looking at the numbers, when we think about long-term pixel utility, I don't think that the cosmetics inside of our game right now are a super compelling pixel sink. We see some people buy them and it's great. Like we want to make it an option, but when it compares to other revenue inside of the game, it's really small. Like cosmetic spend is like maybe like $2,000 to $5,000 a day inside of the game. Like again, it's not bad, but when you're comparing it to like 50,000 from VIP a day, then it's a bit smaller. So then we look at where other value is getting spent, right? So like the fact that there's a coin OTC market, again, we don't hate it. But that is actually value that we could be capturing back into the pixel token if we pull it off properly. The other thing that's interesting too is the idea of account minting. I talked about that on my X account or Twitter account the other day. But there is actually a lot of value in having a high level account right now, right? You can kind of view an account like a node. I'm not sure if I've like talked about this concept to you guys yet, but I've been fascinated by nodes for a while. I think nodes right now in the current state of 2024 are the silliest thing. Like you used to actually have to buy a node because there was a miner and you actually had to buy the hardware. And now people like fake make nodes that just give emissions of a token. But and it's for security or like protocol stability, but it's not. That's like it's just a way to sell token emitters basically. And I don't love the idea of node sales for that reason. Like we would never do a node sale, but I think the overall concept inside of Web3 is interesting. And if you think about it, a high level player to count, it's kind of like a node, right? So basically letting you mint your player account might be an interesting pixel utility essentially. If your player account is generating more pixel because it's leveled up, and this is thing that has value to you because of that, like because you can generate and get more pixel tokens, then us giving you the option to mint it with like a mint price there might make sense. So say that we set the price to mint an account to like 10,000 pixel at first, right? It might be really stupidly high. And it might not make sense to mint many accounts at that price level, but there's ways that we can kind of control the supply of new accounts getting minted. The thing that I don't like about account minting is, one, it might create like this new inflationary asset that is your account's progress. And if we have too many minted, it might get hard to manage, right? If we put like a high barrier to the ones that can get minted, we make it so that it's not very bot mintable by setting that high price, then there's something interesting there. Like, it would only make sense to mint an account at like a 10,000 pixel cost if you thought you could sell it for more, right? So that's like a very low percentage of accounts. There's something interesting there, and we're thinking about that kind of stuff a lot.
Yeah, I just love their commitment to like, Heidi, please read this. Please add tea. Yeah, I
I
love
like
tea
that.
too. I love
Yeah,
tea.
I like tea too.
I love tea.
Actually,
Winter,
someone that we
summer,
just brought on onto the team
matcha.
loves tea. They would love this. We probably need to consult them for what kind of tea
Yeah,
we
we
should
would.
do.
We would. No. Like when I met our new he goes by Pixel_Habibi in Discord. He like brought tea and like shared it with me. So yeah, big fans. Anyways, okay. Back to it. Okay, someone let me see here. I love this idea, and there will be some like we've been developing some fun loot box mechanics. So there will definitely be some of this like yeah, loot box mechanics, as I just said, coming soon. So I'm excited for that. And yeah, limited time cosmetics. And then there were some other comments like, oh, we need more cosmetics. We need limited time cosmetics. Absolutely. We did this a long time ago with Jerome, but we just didn't prioritize it. But it's definitely going to become more of a consistent priority with like chapter 2 changes. And like, you got to decorate your house. There's so much there that we can do. So I'm excited for it. Okay. Oh yeah, limited rare industries would be cool, but please keep like a nerfed one in Terravilla. We'll see. Yeah, so we've done that thus far. But yeah, like Luke said, they're pretty good. They're pretty fun. They've been pretty successful in the past. So we'll talk about it in like future game design. We need an easy form to fill out when an account gets banned. So there actually is one. You just need to go to the support. So go to the dashboard and click on the green button in the bottom right, and you can fill out a ban appeal form. If you go !appeal on Discord, you'll be told exactly what to do there as well. So there is a process for this. And let's see here. What else? Oh yeah, someone said when integration after grain glitchers. So yeah, we just had one go live yesterday, which is really fun. I don't actually know when the next one is coming, but basically we have a very limited amount of ones that we can work on at once for various reasons, but we just onboarded a whole bunch more that we're working on as like a new wave. So there are a bunch coming. I don't know when the next one is coming specifically because there's a lot that goes into it, but they're coming and I'm really, really excited. But yeah, shout out to Grain Glitchers. They make amazing content. Like, just honestly go follow them on Twitter just because their content is so fun and so good. But yeah, I'm really excited about that. I'm excited about a lot of things. I feel like I say every time I'm talking about something, I'm like, I'm so excited for this, but I am. It's true. I'm being genuine, I promise. Okay, hoping we can add managers to our specs. So we've talked a lot about this in the past. Like, what kind of system would it be? Would it be just a manager? Would it be like a friending system? Some of you guys want a marriage system in game, which personally I find funny, but I can see the use case. So there's lots of different ways, I guess, that we can spin the narrative on this, but it's definitely something that we've talked about a lot, and we'll once again kind of take into consideration when we're doing some future design work.
Yep, lots of good questions. Okay, so phone users just can't compete with the PCs, especially when cooking in LAN. Yeah, so that's probably going to be like around phase 2 or phase 3, basically. So there's a couple of things that we need to focus on when we focus on getting more users inside of the game. Really, right now, what we're just trying to focus on is like making current users happy for the short term, right? Because if we start to try to grow before our own users are happy, it's not going to go so well, right? So yeah, we'll probably make some fixes to mobile, and then the first time user experience is going to be the next big thing too. Like, that's a really, really big one. It has to work very smooth on mobile. It has to be super easy to log in, create an account, like do all this kind of stuff. So yeah, no, we hear you. I think game 2, or maybe some of the other stuff that we're doing soon, or like side things that we're doing at Pixels, will be mobile native. I think this current game as is, it's going to be kind of hard to get into the App Store, but we might try in the growth stage. Like there might be a few things that we can do. Oh, side note too, when we think about like monetization and things like that, this is actually how we might make App Store work. Is we're going to start to work on, when we talk about like first time user experience, mobile experience, monetization, optimization. Like there's some really easy wins and like some new tech that we might be building out around like fiat payments, basically, and maybe even like fiat to buyback. So like one thing that we can do is, if we want to maintain App Store compliance, is add in fiat payments inside of Pixels, where you can maybe like buy the Pixel token off chain, and then we do a buyback, or there might be some automated system that does a buyback of the Pixel token. You might get 30% less because you have to pay 30% of that Apple tax, and actually probably sales tax too. But yeah, if you can basically make it really easy for people to, get the token with fiat, especially when we go over to like more of a mobile focus, then there's something there.
Okay, our team member that is tea obsessed is also watching, and he said, I was just making my first cup of tea as you guys are talking about that. That's so funny. Okay. Will Spec membership be possible in the future? Okay, the part of this that I wanted to flag was like renting lands using the Pixel token in Pixels. Is that something in the future? We've talked about it. There's land NFT land rental services working right now, and they're working really great. It, there's a case for having that kind of implementation in game as well. So we've talked about it
Yeah,
a little bit.
it doesn't make sense until we fix the economics around land first, though. So like landowners, I promise you, we're not trying to rug you. There's like some game balance changes that we know we need to make, and we're like, this is like a large focus of what we're doing. Like there were some things that we tried to do in chapter 2 that didn't get achieved in the way that we want, and we are now going to be like addressing that. Like that's like basically, we had a team meeting today on planning. Like that's the focus. Basically fixing the tier 3 and the tier 4 resources, the land gameplay associated with that. And it also ties into guild gameplay too, right? If land gameplay isn't strong, then guild gameplay isn't strong. So there's two things here that we need to fix before we move on to some of the really cool stuff we're doing around monetization and like Web3 tech and all of this cool stuff where, yeah, once we get this stuff figured out so we can like start some of the growth tech, it's going to be a really fun time at Pixels. Look, I tell you guys when we're going to grow. I know every single time when we're going to blow up more. And I feel like people don't believe it, but I'm telling you, there's going to be about like maybe 2 months focused on like some of this game stuff, making sure the gameplay feels better, that like our core user base feels satisfied. We're seeing the metrics that we want with this core user base. Then we're probably going to spend a month or two building out some new growth tech. We're already getting some of the work done on it now. And then that's probably when we're going to start to see an insane growth phase again. Like once we can start to basically refunnel some of the tokens in to more UA and target them better, and then run some campaigns with like other markets, then like it's money for us as well. I'll say money in terms of like it'll be going well. So like it's going to be a couple months. This is like a build phase again. We go through like contractions and expansions. This is like a narrowing of our focus so that we can focus on the fundamentals. Then we'll come out of our shells in a couple of months and grow again a lot. It'll be fun.
Let's go, guys. All right. I just pulled a sign because I want to address it, but I also love it. So because of how the art is built in Pixels, it'd be hard to add like your character actually physically waving or dancing. But I think there's a use case for like little quick pop-up emojis, like over your head kind of thing. Like you just click like a happy one, or like there's like a shortcut to it, something like that. I think that would be really cute and fun.
Oh, this is good. This game will only be farming, completing tasks, or they will add some mode like PvP to fight against other players. So yeah, I think that's one of the things I want to address. So there's a couple of things we've been thinking about when we think about like more mechanics and pixels and how we achieve that inside of the ecosystem. There's some things we've talked about like dungeons, caverns, and all of this. And then there's like the competitive land gameplay. The reality is our team only has so many resources. So what we're probably going to do is we'll probably start to acquire some games to help fill in some of the gaps we've been talking about. That's some of the alpha. So I don't think I can talk much more about that. But yeah, we want to basically make the gameplay as diverse as possible. There's ways that we can fill in the gaps without our team directly building it. The Pixel Foundation has a treasury, right? And the Pixel Foundation is committed to growing the ecosystem in the best way possible. And sometimes, allocating some of that treasury towards things like this is going to be pretty needle moving. So yeah, there might be some gaps inside of the game right now, but some of it will be built by teams, some of it will probably be by acquisition.
Okay. Okay, this question here. So, what if we can use the bed anytime instead of instant energy? Do you guys actually like the sauna? Because I think it's boring as hell. But this is kind of what you're suggesting is that you kind of want the bed to operate similar to the sauna. So, personally, I disagree. I think it's so much better if you can like go and quickly regain energy so then you can play right away. But interesting. It also makes sense, I guess, because IRL, you're spending a lot of time in bed. But interesting thought there.
We need an event like XP Boost or Carnival, need more gameplay. Yeah, so I will say we are reworking our live ops strategy. We have started to bring on more talent on the team, which is great, and we're starting to like bring on even more. There's probably gonna be like honestly, we thought we needed one more person when it came to some of the design decisions. It's actually looking like I need like 3 to 4 people to join the design team. And what's amazing about Pixels lately is like we've gotten so much good talent coming in. Like there are a lot of people that are very experienced that see what they're doing. They see you guys. I think it's mostly because of you. Like the fact that we have like 5,000 people concurrently listening to an AMA on a game. Like that's actually crazy for anyone in the industry. They see that and it makes them want to work here, which is really great. So the type of people that we'll probably actually add are like people on the live ops side, people who have like experience on like actually putting together like live ops structures. Like some of the stuff we've been doing before has been like fun filler content, but there's actually some like interesting strategic ways to plan live ops too, where it might help achieve some of the other goals that we're trying to achieve when it comes to things like, making energy easier to get or, having more pixel utility and like wrapping it up in fun events too. So that's what some of the mobile people or some of like the MMO people that we're talking to, like they might bring on. Same thing with I saw a question on ads or like some kind of comment on ads. Let me watch an ad for more energy. Like that actually might be something that we introduce soon. So one of the things with Web3 gaming that's hard actually is ad placements, like finding people who want to advertise in a Web3 game. And that requires like some level of partnerships, basically. And we've been talking to some people who actually specialize in that, like where ads should go, how they feel good inside of the game and like how to actually do the business relationships or the ad placements too. I think we probably will demo one soon with Axie. I shouldn't say anything more. And we were supposed to do this a while ago, actually, Heidi. But we can, yeah, I think we should reprioritize that now. That'll be an easy win this week. But yeah, you'll see one there. So yeah, the other thing that we probably are going to start hiring for too is like some of the end game stuff also. So I mean, yeah, we're in a cool spot. We're getting more talent. We're leveling up everywhere, and like that's kind of the next stage is the Pixels. Like basically growing the team to get the right people on board, making this game as good as possible, and also prepping the team for like what the future after this looks like inside of this Pixels ecosystem. And I just want to make it really clear too. Whenever we talk about ecosystem expansion, it's still all oriented around Pixel token. If we release a new game, it's still Pixel token. It doesn't make sense to start fresh. We already have like user base, already have a listing, right? Yeah, it's all about this one ecosystem that we're focused on with anything that we do here.
Okay, so Rohan, I love your vision and passion, but we don't want to hear about future games. We want to hear about today's solutions. So we went through all of this at the beginning of the AMA, all of like short-term fixes and implementations and whatnot. So Luke, do you want to just quickly pull up that screen again and we can just like last 3 minutes go through like short-term priorities and like what we're doing?
Yeah. So these are the short-term priorities here that we're basically working on fixes for now. Like this is what needs to be addressed in the next like honestly, we need something end of this week. I think we'll get the reputation one out by the end of this week. I think we're going to start to introduce industry and tool degradation, or is there a better way to say that? Repair or durability soon. And then we're basically going to have some actionable items that we'll introduce to you guys next week on what we're going to do with like the systems changes that we need to make. We also outlined like a couple of different levers that we have to play with. So like we talked a lot about like adjusting task force balance, adjusting energy per day, the coins given per each task. Like these are some of the decisions that we're making now in terms of like which is the right lever to pull to achieve the outcomes that we want to achieve. And then yeah, we also hear you guys with like a lot of the sentiment too. Like we don't think the sentiment's amazing right now. It's been better before. And we understand that. That's why we don't want to move on to anything else until we have this figured out, basically. So, yeah, you'll see an update with Reputation. Hopefully, by end of this week, it should already be ready. We just need to figure out when to release it, and I think we can get that out. And then there might be some smaller things that we can get out as well. So, I think the crop thing that we talked about too. I know that's a really big landowner annoyance. Like that, we can get out relatively quickly. I think probably early next week. And then, yeah, we're focused on basically these big issues for the next little bit. So yeah, believe me, we hear it, we see it. And this is like this is the biggest focus, right? I have to come in and cheerlead, right, for like what we're doing in the future too. Like if I just focus on the short term, like I had been like the last couple of weeks, people are like, when are you adding pixel utility? It's like this has always been in the plan. We've never not thought about pixel utility. That's all I think about. The only chart I stare at every single day is our monthly revenue and if that number is going up or down. Believe me, that's like all I think about. So like I need to like kind of give you guys the 30,000 foot picture sometimes too, and then bring it back down to the short term because we are thinking about revenue, we're thinking about ecosystem, we're thinking about the long term of pixels, we're building out the fundamentals, and then yes, like most of the team actually, like almost all the teams, just focused on the short term stuff right now, as we're like figuring out what we can do next in terms of long term.
Amazing. Okay, I think we can wrap it up here. Lots of good stuff today. As always, you guys are awesome. We have so many amazing questions. And keep asking them. Post them on X, Twitter, and Discord. We're here. We hear you. We want to hear you. So please continue to give us feedback. There is a energy party happening on Friday with Mars Cat Voyage. They are an integrated collection, so I believe they're also going to be giving away a couple, or at least one, of their NFTs. And they actually just created some UGC, which I think they're also giving away, which should be pretty fun. So go to the in-game calendar or Discord minor announcements or Discord events to see your local time zone. And yeah, we will see you guys at the party. And then, of course, next week for our live stream and Twitter space. Thanks,
Thanks
guys.
everyone.